Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the MasterClass on Sharpening Focus and Lessening Procrastination. Okay, so I wanted to just come in and start talking about this one because this was the number 2 topic that was the most popular from the surveys that I got back at the end of the training last week. And I know it seems unrelated somehow to resiliency, but this masterclass is going to show you exactly how, sharpening focus and lessening procrastination is actually a part of what a lot of trauma victims they just have issues with, right? They have lack of focus and they're always procrastinating because of this thing that we're going to talk about, which is attention residue. As I was explaining to someone yesterday, I liken the brain to a computer because it's an easy analogy for everyone to understand because everybody uses computers in this day and age. Or if you don't use a computer, you use a phone. Okay, so when you have too many apps open, speaking of, I need to put my phone on Do Not Disturb because I'm getting a lot of text messages. Then it's taking away and distracting me from this, therefore reducing my attention residue issues. Okay, so right when we have too many apps open on our browser or on our phone, right, the workload is drastically lowered. The workload that your computer can actually do is drastically lowered, right? If you look at your settings and look at your processing speed, there's a lot of drag that happens when too many tabs are open, right? So it's called processing speed on a computer, but the same thing goes for your brain. When we have unprocessed trauma, so think of our unprocessed trauma as the RAM. Okay, right? So RAM stands for random access memory. So on a computer, right, RAM is the space available for switching between tasks, right? This is the memory. It's like short-term memory for your brain and versus long-term memory, or like long-term memory on a computer would be considered your hard drive. Okay, so let me know if you're tracking with me. If you're watching the replay, give me #replay and let me know in the comments if this is resonating with you. Just say like, yes, I got you, something like that. So I know that this is tracking. I know I use a lot of analogies because that's just how my brain works. It's like, this is to this as that is to that, right? If you can remember SAT days, right? But even when I was teaching in corporate, I had to teach people who knew nothing about how gasoline or petroleum products were made. They knew nothing about tanks, vessels, all the way up to what we call process control, which is how we control the units or the process units via computer program. Anyway, so in order to teach people those things, I would relate it to something that was familiar because I truly believe that, right, the brain is all about association. When we can associate with something, it makes more sense. It's clearer. You can see a picture in your brain. And it allows us to adapt and grab onto new concepts. Okay, let's see. Okay, so also in brain language, let's go back to RAM. So RAM on a computer is the space available for switching between tasks and stuff. So switching between tasks in brain language is called cognitive functioning. So cognitive functioning in your brain is similar to to RAM on your computer. Okay? Just give me some hearts if you're watching the replay. Let me know that this is resonating. And the term, I'm using air quotes, cognitive functioning, is defined as modes of processing information and making decisions. And so this is seen in victims of trauma or PTSD when people visibly check out when you're talking to them. So I have some friends who are like highly successful in the corporate world. Some are highly successful as entrepreneurs. But then, sometimes we're out having coffee, or, we're hanging out at Disneyland because that's what people do in California. Although the text messages I was getting as I was starting this live were from my brother who lives here in Orange County. We're both from Hawaii, and we're both transplants here to California. His business or job is getting impacted because of the coronavirus, and they're shutting down. There's a state of emergency declared here in California, shutting down theme parks. And for those of you who know me, know that I love Disney. I love theme parks. We have tickets to Magic Mountain and Knott's, including Disney. So it's just like, Anyway, so go back to my story. Sometimes I'm walking around with my friend at Disney, and she's one of the leaders in this organization. But I know, because I know her on a personal level, that she has unprocessed trauma in her life. And sometimes we're walking around, we're talking, and then all of a sudden I see her visibly check out. Like she's looking, how people look up and to the left? So when people do that, look up and to the left, that means they're thinking. It's kind of like you're looking into the files of your brain. It's just weird NLP stuff. You look up and left. It's like you're trying to search for the file inside of your brain. And I can see her doing that. And honestly, I know it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it has something to do with where her thoughts are leading her. And also one of my other friends in the business space, sometimes we're talking, and then she's supposed to be listening to me, and then I see her look up to the left, and then she looks back at me, and I'm like, whoa, where did you go? I mean, I don't confront her on it, but I do see that. So I didn't know that this was actually a thing. And I have to apologize to my son, because when things were getting hard for us, when I was a single mom and, he wasn't turning in homework, started misbehaving in school, I kept getting called in to see the teacher, and I'm yelling at him, and then he starts checking out. And then what does it do? It makes me more upset. I'm like, why are you not listening to me? Oh my God, don't you understand that this is serious? And I didn't understand this whole unprocessed trauma and cognitive functioning, or executive functioning rather, until I read a book on executive functioning, because I'm like, what does he have? I sent him to, I was just looking for a therapist, a doctor, someone to tell me what was, quote, wrong with my son, because he's very sharp. He can finish a video game in one weekend. I worked every other weekend, so I'm like, hey, stay out of grandma's hair. Here's a new video game. And he was running me broke, because I would come home Saturday, Sunday. He's like, Mom, I love this game. It's so cool. And then Sunday, I'd come home and he was kind of restless. I'm like, why don't you finish, play your game? He's like, I finished it. I'm like, oh boy, and games are not cheap. They're like $50 a pop. I know it's more expensive these days. And GameFly, I think GameFly subscription kind of just started up at that time. And when you live in Hawaii, you don't have access to a lot of different things due to shipping and stuff like that. Anyway, I didn't realize why he had problems functioning in the classroom when I knew he was highly intelligent. So that's when I started digging deeper into this area of psychology and executive functioning and realizing that victims of trauma have a lot of problems with executive functioning, focusing, finishing, all this kind of stuff. And the silver lining on all of it was it allowed my heart to soften towards my son, towards my friends. And, I can see it in my friends. And instead of, being offended that they're checking out, I'm like, okay, they're processing trauma. It's cool. I don't want to add to their trauma, so I don't even mention it. Okay. So I wanted to address one form of therapy. Again, disclaimer, I am not a therapist, but I have worked in the mental health area when I was in the military. So we had to learn all of these different modalities and things. And also my airplanes. My son was subject to a lot of these different therapies, remedies, and whatever. Sent him to so many different doctors, just to see what was happening and help him process the trauma as things are coming out. So CBT is one of the modalities that he learned at. It was a school. It was an outpatient therapy center, but they actually went to school there. So the school sent his work to this outpatient therapy place, and he did his work there. So it's kind of like they had like a school, but it was outpatient therapy. So CBT was one of the modalities that they used there. And just for definition's sake, because I love defining things for you, because there's all these terms that get thrown around, CBT to, and right, Leonie's an actual psychologist, doctor, but there's so many different modalities. Anyway, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is a type of psychotherapeutic treatment that helps patients understand the thoughts and feelings, again, right? So thoughts and feelings that influence their behaviors. So CBT is it's more like of a quick treatment. It's not the psychoanalytical where you look at your past and you just do a lot of like thinking. This is more about very, very logical, linear thinking. If you are thinking this is influencing that behavior or vice versa. That's a nutshell. And if I'm wrong, and there's doctors in here, totally school me. It's okay. So one of the main focuses of cognitive behavioral therapy is on changing the automatic negative thoughts. I'm reading here, okay? Automatic negative thoughts that contribute to and exacerbate emotional difficulties, depression, and anxiety. And these negative thoughts spring forward spontaneously. They are accepted as true. So in the person's mind, it's like, oh, this is automatically true, okay? And they tend to negatively influence their mood. So it's like, oh, yeah, this is true. Or let's just use coronavirus as an example because it's happening right now. It's like, oh, people are dying. So the truth would be people are dying from coronavirus. And this sends people into a panic, right? Which it is true, but how true is it for you? So this is the same it's similar to using the matrix, the risk resilience matrix, right? Yes, how coronavirus is deadly. There's no cure, but how likely are you going to actually contract it? One, and then how likely is it actually, if you are within the age range that people are actually recovering from, and you're not in those outlier categories, it lessens the severity of the possibility. Like if you do contract it, it lessens the severity of it affecting your life. Okay. Let me just finish reading this CBT since I started on it. Okay, so through the CBT process, patients examine these thoughts and are encouraged to look at evidence from reality again, that either supports or refutes these thoughts. Okay, so like, yes, you are susceptible to coronavirus or you're not susceptible. Just using that as an example. And by doing this, people are able to take a more objective and realistic look, similar to how the matrix is used, at the thoughts that contribute to feelings of anxiety and depression, right? Because I know dealing with people who are stuck in the throes of depression, it's easy for us on the outside to objectively look at the situation. Like, why are you freaking out? Like, why is this so upsetting to you? When matter of fact, it's like, so you're the outsider, right? It's like, why are you tripping? But if you are the person going through it, it's a whole different perspective, right? Okay. So by becoming aware of the negative and often unrealistic thoughts that dampen their feelings and moods, people are able to start engaging into healthier thinking patterns, right? So CBT is all about confronting negative thoughts, looking at it from an objective perspective, and then, okay, in reality, should I really be anxious about this thing? In reality, should I really be anxious about running out of toilet paper? Just using coronavirus as an example. Okay, so that is attention residue. Let me know if you have any questions. If you're watching the replay, pop in a question in one of the comments. Tag me and pop a question, and I'll come back in and answer it if you need more clarification. Okay, so moving on to life admin. Okay, so life admin is a term for all the stuff you do at home. I posted an article earlier this morning about people feeling more stressed out at home than they are at work. So if you look at the article, there's a lot of frivolous information in there, but if you distill it, basically it says that at work, you feel more accomplished because you get things done. Things are very linear in a workplace. Well, for the most part, my job was not necessarily linear because we're running the processing plant, and at any time things could fail and we have to be ready to respond. But for most people, their work life is very structured, very linear, very predictable, therefore less stressful. At home, right, especially if you have kids or you have to take care of aging parents, like Stacy McLean and I talked about, you have like so many people coming at you, so many people relying on you singularly because you're the only person there that's in charge, and everybody's asking you questions. Hey mom, how about this? Hey mom, how about that? And you are processing tons of information. right? If just like just to take my son, for example, Mom, can I go play outside? That's a loaded question. He's thinking yes or no, just let me know. But in your mind, you're like, well, did you finish your homework? And there's so many, or did you finish your homework? Did you eat a snack? Did you wash your hands? Did you do your chores? There's like a checklist in the back of your brain that allows you to make the decision. It's kind of like a flow chart, right? If this is this, yes or no, and then you move on to the next box. So that's what's happening in your brain. Going back to the computer, right? When you're using bits, it's like zeros and ones and do processing. And that's how people build computer programs. It's just a yes or a no, and it makes all these yes or no decisions in the computer, and then it spits out something. Like my slide, yes or no, purple, but is it like how much blue, how much red, how much yellow makes up this RGB combination, right? It gives me this purple color that you see here. Even when making the slide, I had to decide what picture to put behind it. So there's so many like decisions before you make the final decision. And so that's a definition of life admin. And I saw the term online, and so I just borrowed it because it's super descriptive. It's admin work that you have to do to manage your home life, basically. So there's a lot I want to talk about regarding life admin. So the first step in helping, so the first segment was about sharpening focus and really understanding how your brain works. This second part is going to be about lessening procrastination and how to actually get stuff done, even if you don't feel like it. You know what, looking at my notes, I'm going to reverse some things. Okay, I want to talk about mortgaged time. Okay, so let's go here. Yeah, mortgage time, managing your resources. So in the workspace, resource management is about managing people, money, and stuff. Hold on 1 second. Speaking of resource management, my husband went golfing, but it looks like it's going to rain, so he turned around and came home. Life admin, guys, life admin in the flesh. Okay, mortgage time. So what I want you to do is open your calendars, and if you don't have one, you need to start. Just say you need to start looking at your resources. And look at so I want you to look at all the time you already have mortgaged out. So plot down the amount of time you're at work, the amount of time that you sleep, although I'll get to this one later, like eating, like the stuff that you take for granted. Like the time spent doing kid stuff, like getting your kids ready for school, packing lunches, driving them to school, picking them up, taking them to sports, taking them to music class, taking them to, and if you serve in your church, right? Like for me, at one point I was teaching Sunday school, and we had to create our own slides. We had to prepare praise and worship. We had to they gave us prizes, so then I had to figure out how I was going to distribute the prizes. And right, this is all volunteer work. So, my Sundays were pretty much spent 8 to 2 at church, because when I was serving, we started busing in kids from the lower income neighborhoods and feeding them lunch before we sent them back home, as part of our ministry. And so 8 to 2, I was physically at church. That didn't include the time I spent, Friday, Saturday night, looking at the lesson plan, deciding what I was going to teach and how to make it relatable to the kids. Because yes, I could have just taught and just went, like that Bueller, the guy in Ferris Bueller, right? Ben Stein, right? Just talk like this and read it off the paper, like no slides. Oh, so the slides, I would make transitions for the kids, right, in PowerPoint, so that, if I flip the word or spin it around or have it fly in from the side, it would keep them engaged. Because I was teaching grades 4 through 6. So that age, I'm competing with, with handheld devices. Not a lot of phones back then. Not a lot of kids had cell phones back then. But, handheld devices that they would sneak into church and be like, hey, put it down. This time is for God. We need to reverence him and just, have them fall in love with Jesus. So commuting to and from work and to and from all these places. So I want you to calculate all of that. So how I do it is I use Google Calendar. You can use your iCalendar, or you can just print off a sheet. Or what I used to do, you can use an Excel spreadsheet as well, put times down the side, but it's way easier to use Google Calendar because it's already laid out for you. Plot the times on the side, like midnight to whatever, and then you block it all off. And I actually color coded mine so I could see what I was doing when, what types of activities I was doing and what was taking up the most of my time, like commuting and stuff. Anyway, that's a whole nother class that I don't want to get into right now because we're already 30 minutes in. So looking at all of that, plotting in all of your already mortgaged time, the white space that you see left over is the actual time you have remaining to do the stuff that's on your plate. So it's similar to budgeting, right? You have your income that comes in, you have your paycheck, and then you have all of your expenses. Income minus expenses equals whatever's left over. It's the same thing with time. Okay. So that being said, I'm going back to time blocking. So once you see it all laid out, you see all the white space. This is something that I learned recently. I'm always up-leveling my time management skills. So there are 4 different blocks of time that they're all grouped together. One is a focus block. Write that down. One is a social block, time you spend with people, whether it's virtually on a Zoom call or even watching this. This would be a social event. Admin is number 3, and recovery block is number 4. There, you could divide it into other things, but let me just explain to you how why these are categorized that way. So a focus block is anything that requires your brain to think, right? High levels of cognitive, spinning of your wheels, like you need focus. Social, depending if you're an introvert or extrovert, right? Social blocks could drain you or they could sustain you and give you energy. Admin blocks are kind of like low-level processing. Maybe could be life admin, like washing the dishes, doing the laundry. And if you're doing like real admin stuff, it would be just like note taking or like transcribing notes. Like I did this morning, I had handwritten notes and then I put them into a Google Doc so that I could print it out because my handwriting is atrocious. Just saying, I have a hard time reading my own handwriting. So, and recovery blocks could be exercise, definitely sleep. It's anything that you do that restores you. So like a massage would be considered recovery. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but I think this is important. So you already blocked out the stuff that's already mortgaged. You have white space. Focus blocks, usually you need 90 minutes minimum. 90 to 120 minutes. You really can't focus longer than 120 minutes without like filling your thumbs or start getting into other admin stuff. Like your brain can only focus for so long. So that's why I'm bringing this up now as well. There's a whole system around how to schedule focus and admin and recovery, but basically look at your schedule. If you have stuff that you need to do that requires focus, you need a 90-minute block minimum. So don't be scheduling like heavy duty cognitive stuff in 1 hour window, because there's the whole, you have to get ready and then your brain has to start focusing. Your brain doesn't focus like, oh my gosh, it's 6 a.m. I need to do something at 6 a.m. or whatever time it is. My first focus block of the day is at 6 a.m. But it takes some warming up. Then you get in the zone and then you're like going at it. And then once your momentum dies down, then you can kind of sort out your thoughts. So it usually takes a minimum of 90 minutes. If say you do it for like an hour, what you'll discover is you get to the end of your hour and you're like, oh my God, I'm so on a roll. So just watch for that. Like you're so on a roll and then you have to stop because you have something else on your calendar. So this also avoids you bleeding over and taking time from another block in order to finish your focus block. Anyway, focus block 90 to 120 minutes or 2 hours. Let's see. I also wanted to talk about this other concept that I learned. It's called GYLIO. I don't know. I read it, so I don't know if they say Gilio, but it's an acronym standing for Get Your Life in Order. And so this was a concept that some college deployed, and they scheduled a Get Your Life in Order week or day, like midway through the quarter. Because I don't know about you, but there is a lot of times where you're just going. And then you're like, oh, especially if you are creative and you're like, yeah, and you just go on, you're creating. And then it's like, whoa. And then, once you get out of the zone, you look around and you're like, holy smokes. There's a lot of mess around here that I have to clean up. But if you don't schedule time to get your life in order, it's going to catch up to you. And that's why you feel the burden. Like, I'm just going to use tax time as an example, right? There's a heavy burden a lot of times for business owners. Like, oh, I have to get all my, my numbers together so I can send it to the tax person. But then if you are consistent and you tracked your stuff every week and you made time to do it, there's less stress. So I just wanted to mention that. So put some time in your calendar to do the mundane. And I know it's like, it feels like it's a waste, but if it's scheduled and you do it regularly, it's like cleaning your house, right? So yeah, I'll just say the different types of get your life in order topics, it's finances, right? Looking at your finances, getting them all in order so at tax time you're not overburdened. Home and cleaning, like taking care of cleaning up the dishes before you go to sleep every night. I don't know if you guys have heard of this person called the Fly Lady, but she was a lifesaver for me when my daughter was born. I was 2 years working in the refineries at this time. I was like 22 years old. Working a 12-hour shift, plus having a baby, plus, having a husband who works the same shift, it was a lot to manage, especially if I was the house manager, right? And I had to find a way to schedule all of these little like check-ins and things to do, setting routines for me to get stuff done on a regular basis. So it wasn't like all waiting for me at the end of the week when I have no energy. And at the refinery, we had routine duties. Like every morning you had to do these things. And we had like this handheld, I guess it's like a BlackBerry. We have a handheld that we take outside and we'd mark everything down, check things off, sign it off, daily routines, weekly routines, monthly, quarterly. And so with the weekly routines, Saturdays were specifically for things that were left over that needed to be done, because we had a lot of compliance things like environmental and safety things that we had to check on. But Monday through Friday, we had people coming in to fix and repair things. Saturdays, everyone was off. It was just, the people who were running the plants. The operators were on deck Saturday and Sunday. It was pretty much a ghost town. And that was when we got those other things done that still needed to be done and documented. And then there are things that needed to be checked quarterly per environmental or safety regs. And so it became a habit, and it was good for management where they didn't have to worry if it would get done because it was scheduled. And we would sign it off, we would check it. And because the records were digital, all they had to do was, look it up if in case we had to send reports to the government or government agencies. It was all documented and it was all scheduled. And so if they were to look at us, it's like, no, we have everything scheduled regularly and it shows that we are being compliant. So scheduling routines, yes, I know like Linda and I talked about it on our interview, but scheduling out routine, mundane tasks ends the constant nagging and worrying, and that to-do list is like, oh, all this stuff that I have to do, that nagging feeling that you have that things are never done. Scheduling it out makes sense. Okay. So again, go with me on this. I love being creative and spontaneous as the next person, but I know that scheduling things means I will get it done. And I have control of when it gets done. Like it's not going to creep up on me. And that's the worst thing. When I was working for a marketing agency, the worst thing was having my weekends be intruded by, like, oh, did this get done? Did that get done? I'm like, I was hired on as a project manager and I scheduled everything out like routinely. I'm like, okay, what do you need done? How often? So there was a daily routine list. I created the system for them, but there are things that had still fallen through the cracks because they didn't realize that they needed it to be done, or that like they would just kind of wait until stuff was biting them in the butt. Then they're like, oh, I needed that. Like I'm off. It's the weekend. Like you don't pay me enough to be working 24/7, so that's a whole other thing. Okay, so that is the whole get your life in order section. Time blocking and stacking. Yeah, so resource management, we already plotted out our mortgage time, schedule our get your life in order stuff, time blocking. And so the focus blocks and, you know, the 4 different type of blocks on your schedule, like if you have a lot of admin stuff, all the admin stuff happens during admin block. You see, so it's not like you're getting pinged all the time for, like if you have like financial Fridays, everything that happens financially, like say you need to reconcile your accounts, everything happens on Friday. Or you need to go to the bank, happens on Friday. And it's kind of like having like a filing system for your tasks. Oh, yep, admin goes here, checking email goes here. I know not everyone is has the luxury, let's say, of checking email only certain times of the day because you have work responsibilities. In my corporate job, everybody communicated through email, and if there is a urgent request, it came through an email. So I always have to have the email inbox open. But I would triage my email and respond to the high priority ones, and then schedule out when I would respond to the other ones. So this may be common knowledge to some of you, and this is some stuff that you already do. These are just examples of stuff that I had to do to keep my life moving, working smoothly, working 60, 70 hours a week, having a son going through therapy, playing, kids playing sports, being very active in my church. And the thing for me, I was on a rotating work schedule. Okay, so it's not like I had Monday through Friday set, Saturday set, Sunday set. No, every other weekend I was working. Every other Monday, Tuesday I was working. Every other Wednesday and Thursday I was working. So I had to be on top of this whole resource management thing for me. And I don't know if your life is as crazy as mine was, but just saying, like I really had to be vigilant and watch everything that I was doing. Okay, so this last tip is for those of you who hear everything that I'm saying and you're like, no, thank you, ma'am. I don't want, like, there's just something in you. I don't know if it's, for me, it was the traumatic experience that I had of my stepmom controlling my life. And she was very dictatorship. I don't know, whatever. She dictated a lot of my time. Like if I had this at this time, this at that time, dinner was at this time, bedtime was this time, and it was like, no, it's 9 o'clock, go to bed. Oh, it's 8 o'clock, you should be home. And it was just like everything was like clockwork when I was younger, and I totally rebelled against anything structured for like the beginning part of my adult life. And then as I worked in the refinery, I saw the freedom that I had with structure, because we had daily routine duties. As fast as I could get it done, I was free, and I could just do whatever I wanted after that. And so that helped me. Like in my home, it was like, as soon as I was done, I get stacked with more things. But in the refinery, as soon as you're done with your daily routines and whatever, you checked everything off and you signed them all off, you could pretty much cruise the rest of your shift. So the rest of the shift, we were just monitoring and things. And so it just helped me appreciate working hard and then playing hard. So for those of you who are resistant, another tip I learned from the fly lady is to set a timer and work against the clock. And so this is kind of like mortgage time. It's like I'm setting a timer for 5 minutes and I'm going to unload the dishwasher. So this unloading the dishwasher with a timer was mind blowing for me. She tells, in her emails, that's one of the examples, the first examples that she uses is like, set a timer and unload the dishwasher. I didn't have a dishwasher at the time, but just unloading the dishes from the dish rack and putting them away. She said, set a timer for 5 minutes and go. And I'm like, 5 minutes? Like, I'm never going to get all of these dishes put away. It's like, rah, 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 rah. And then I set the timer for 5 minutes and I'm like going, like racing against the clock. That made it fun too, right? You gamify things, makes it fun. And then I put all the stuff away and I'm like, oh, like, where's the timer? I looked at it. I still had 2 minutes left on the clock. How crazy is that? All this time I had resisted, like, oh my gosh, I have to unload the dishwasher. Oh my gosh, I have to like mop the floor. So I started using the timer for everything because she challenged us to do it. And mopping the floor took a lot less time, like, especially when you're racing against the clock and you're gamifying it. It made it fun to race against the clock. I don't know if you guys go to Dave & Buster's or anything, but there's a lot of games that have you race against the clock and build points, and it's just fun, right? It's like stressful, but it's kind of fun, like, yeah. It gives you the the reward and the accomplishment of getting things done. Another tool that I like to use is the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. So Mel got the idea for the 5-second rule. She was watching a rocket launch, like a astronaut space rocket launch. And you know how they count off 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And then, right, she saw the rocket launch and like all this fuel that it takes to launch a rocket, defy gravity and get it out of, through our atmosphere and out into space. But there's a lot of energy that it takes to just get off the ground. But, like it's, the launch is scheduled, it's going, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, and then the other part was, she looked at the science behind it, and it takes 5 seconds. Like if you decide in less than 5 seconds, your brain doesn't have time to object. But if you wait longer than 5 minutes, 5 seconds, then after 5 seconds, for whatever reason, your brain starts doing the negative Nelly and like, oh, you can't do that. Like, but if you take action in the 5 seconds, your brain hasn't yet caught up with your decision, and you can overcome all of the negative thoughts, the doubts that keep you from getting things done. You can overcome that using the 5-second rule. So again, you just count backwards, and she has you count down because it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's it. You can't go any higher. If you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can keep going 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So count down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and then go. And so you looking at the Fly Lady and Mel Robbins principle, right? The 5-second rule. Once you start, you can keep going. So a lot of times I've used the Fly Lady timer before I met Mel Robbins. I used the timer to just get me out of my funk, right? So these are, this tool is for lessening procrastination, but also for getting you out of the funk that you feel, to just get started. Because once you start, you can keep going. Like there's this thing about inertia, but And then the law, like a law of physics, is like an object in motion stays in motion. I'm paraphrasing here, but right, once you start, you can keep going. So there you go. And then also it gives you, hi Nicolette, I'm just about wrapping up on the last point, but thank you for being here. So the last point is when we take action and we start doing the thing, right, we have the sense of accomplishment, pride, and self-worth, right? And it also silences the critics that keep reminding us that you can't do it, whether it's an external critic, let's say it's your spouse or your parents or even your kids, you know, like your older kids, you know, like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. There's the external voices. Then there's the internal voices, right? That is just you speaking against yourself, you giving into self-doubt, which, you know, if you have, you know, issues that do require therapy, you know, the unprocessed trauma that we talked about at the beginning that is taking up, you know, your cognitive space, yes, you need to go get help for that. But, you know, building on your past accomplishments banishes self-doubt, builds your self-confidence. So I just want you guys to use the tools that I talked about today to just get stuff done, knock it out, and using the momentum principle, you can keep going. And you're untraining, you know, you're unlearning the fear of starting, you're unlearning the doubt, worry, anxiety of like, am I good enough to do these things? You're just overcoming a lot of fear, doubt, worry, anxiety when you just take action. And I've given you guys a lot of tools on how to take action and why it's important to just get started. Okay. Again, let me know if you're watching the replay when you guys do go back and watch this. And I think I'm going to create a poll in the group to see if you guys like this slide or you rather see my face. Do you like to see my face? Anyway, I'm signing off for now. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I will probably do more master classes here in the group. I'm thinking Tuesdays is probably the best day for me to get those done. Again, I'm looking at my weekly block schedule and seeing where I can fit that in for you guys. I fit it in here because it's part of the summit wrap up and I had already included it in my schedule. But maintaining it long term, right? I have to evaluate and see where I can take something away from what it's already mortgaged and fit this masterclass into the schedule. Okay, so that being said, love all of you. Let me know if you have any questions. I have way lots of stuff to help you with time management. I mean, in fact, I have an online course that I created on time management specifically. And it's a course. I'm a coach. Of course I create courses. That's just what we do. I have an online business. So if you're offended by that, I apologize. You can go ahead and leave the group. But if you're interested in learning more about time management and how to manage the stress and anxiety around those things, and go behind the scenes. I gave you a lot of like practical tips today, but if you want to go behind the scenes and prioritize the things that you need to get done, I have a whole class that I built around that. So let me know if that interests you in the comments, and I will see you next week. Okay, thank you guys. Bye. Bye.